Anything that we actually struggle to feel as an adult, whether that be sadness or loneliness or even joy. Some people really struggle to feel joy. Anything that we struggle to feel is because you weren't allowed to feel it as a child.
Most of us were never taught how to understand what we're feeling. We learned how to perform, how to achieve, how to push through, but not how to recognize, regulate, or communicate our emotions. So when life applies pressure, we often default to reacting instead of responding. In this week's episode, we explore what emotional intelligence really is, not as a buzzword or a soft skill, but as one of the most important life skills we can develop.
Emotional intelligence, you can hear what's not being said. You can sense what's not necessarily trying to be shown or displayed, but you're still picking up on that.
Jess Cameron, a mindset coach and emotional intelligence expert who helps people understand what's happening beneath the surface in their emotional responses, their relationships, and their everyday decisions. Jess shares her own journey of learning to trust intuition, experimenting with emotional awareness, and discovering that emotions aren't weaknesses to suppress. They're signals to listen to.
Women, yes, they do want their men to be emotional, but they want their men to be regulated. Women expect their man to be the perfect woman.
We talk about emotional regulation, not as control, but as choice. Why anger isn't something to fear, but something to understand and channel. And why emotional intelligence matters just as much as IQ when it comes to personal growth, leadership, and connection. This conversation explores how emotional intelligence shows up in real life and in workplaces where emotional safety often determines whether people thrive or burn out. We also unpack the idea of intuition, how the constant pace of modern life can drown out our inner voice, and what changes when we learn to slow down enough to hear it again.
If you want to up-level your business, if you want to up-level your relationships, if you want to up-level your life and your experiences, the next key is not more mindset, but the next key to that is emotional regulations.
This episode is about awareness and about learning to respond with intention rather than react from habit. Jess is here to build emotional intelligence that works in the real world and gently guide us back to that inner voice when life gets too loud. Helping us respond rather than react, understand our emotional world, and turn down the noise that drives our behaviour. This week is my guest, Jess Cameron. Jess, welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
It's awesome. I saw you speak last year and we caught up, and I was absolutely blown away by your presentation. So I thought, I've got to get you on the pod.
Thank you. Grateful to be on the pod, from the stage to the pod.
Yeah, awesome. Now, Jess, when you hear about the noise of life, what does that make you think?
The noise of life, I mean, we're always receiving different feedback constantly. And so I look at the noise as all the feedback and the stimulus that we're receiving. And that can be from other people, that can be from television, that can be from media, that can be from social media, that can be from your family. It can come from all different forms. And then there's you and who you are. And I think the noise drowns out that inner voice more times than not.
And how do you think we connect with that inner voice?
Good question. This is actually something that I asked myself, I think it was 2018, that I look at it like this, like to me, we're mind, body, soul, or we're mind, body, high being, spirit, whatever it is that we connect to with that. And the way that I view that is if we're observing our thoughts, any times that you're observing what you're thinking, if we're able to observe our thoughts, then we cannot be our thoughts. And it was something that I heard a psychologist say years ago. I was in a conference and he was like, anything that you can observe, you are not it. You're not the thing that you're observing. So he goes, if you can observe your mind and what it's doing and your thoughts, then technically there is something else that is you. That's not your mind and not your thoughts. And that concept, it was a little bit vague at the time for me, but it's something that I've really contemplated over years after hearing that. And I thought, okay, so if we're mind, body, and soul or spirit or something else that is there, our mind is very loud. Like I know what my mind's thinking all of the time. My body also talks to me, but that's maybe a little less clear. And then the soul or the spirit, which I just like to think is your intuition or your gut, that part that's telling you something that maybe your brain disagrees with. I remember in 2018, I thought, okay, I've got this concept. I look at it like radio frequencies. The mind frequency is turned up very loud and very clear. The body, a little bit staticky. The soul, like a lot of white noise, right? And so I thought, well, is the reason why we can hear our mind so clearly is because we listen to it so often. Is there a way that we can fine tune listening to either the wisdom of the body or the wisdom of the soul? And so I thought in 2018, right, I'm going to experiment with this. And I'm going to have my only New Year's resolution, like my only goal for the year is going to be listening to my intuition or my gut on every single decision. It didn't matter what the decision was. If my brain or my mind disagreed with it, I still had to do it. I still had to follow that. And I thought I just want to experiment. I didn't have any kids, I didn't have any big assets, like I had a good job, but nothing that I could totally ruin my life over. Right? So I thought, right, if I'm going to do it, this is a good time to do it. And of course, the way that the universe works is that was a year of lots of really difficult decisions that my brain wanted to do its pros and cons list and no, do this. This is the thing that makes sense. But because my intention was just fine tuning that soul radio frequency, that I have to follow that impulse on absolutely every single decision. And that was the year that my life just catastrophically went um what'd you say? It was like I was in a rocket ship, right? So it was like every opportunity that came to me was like, oh my goodness, I was just blowing through doors. And that to me became rather than a concept, it became my conviction that this is how I want to live my life, that I have achieved more in this 1 year than the previous 10. My dreams have unfolded in ways that almost felt magical and unnatural purely because I made the decisions that didn't make sense. And now, since 2018, I've fine tuned that more and more and more and more. I hear it a lot more clearly.
Yeah, wow. So it was the speed of making those decisions rather than the procrastination and the overthinking?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's interesting when you have faced with a really big decision, it actually, you probably get your answer like that. But then the mind jumps in and the mind wants to do its process of analyzing, formulating, strategizing, its pros and cons. It wants to essentially pull apart that decision and look at it from every single angle. And two things happen. You either come back to the original gut instinct, and it was like, oh, I knew that straight away, but it's just taken me all of this time to get back to that answer, or you've talked yourself out of that initial gut instinct and you've followed a different path. And then it might take you months or years to find out the original feeling was the correct one. Now, when we make a
And I
decision,
suppose
you go.
yeah, and I suppose you learned that you don't kinda lose, right? You either succeed or you learn.
Exactly. And the times that I did not listen to the gut instinct, should I say, like times where I thought it's time to leave, it was just the feeling. Nothing was wrong. This was in particular, I'm talking about a job. There was nothing wrong. I was making good money. I was comfortable. I was happy, but I just knew it was time to move on. But I didn't do it because there was no urgency behind doing it. And then it all fell apart, like in a way that it actually didn't make sense how it blew up in my face, and it was a very painful experience that I never saw coming, and, like, I can't even other people around were like, "How has this happened?" No one could understand how it blew up so, like, wonderfully, and that to me, I used to say to myself, "Jess, okay, you can either listen to the whisper or you're gonna listen to the sledgehammer." Because the whisper always came first and you didn't listen, and then you got the sledgehammer to still make you make that decision, but there could have been an easier way to do it, and now I'm actually scared of the sledgehammers. So I more quickly answer those whispers, and I also, like I said, have that conviction now that because I've experimented with it and every single time I get an incredible result, there's less fear around it. There's more trust around it now.
Yeah, wow. I know through my journey over since about early 2018 with hitting burnout, like gut feel for me, every time I've questioned my gut feel, then I'd get hit with a sledgehammer. Whether it's a friendship or a relationship or a business decision. And for me, I'm very similar now in the way that I make decisions. So, something will come along, I'll go with my gut feel because gut feel, 9 times out of 10, if not more, is correct, right? And could you share back in 2018, was there an example that you can give us that you acted quickly on and what the result of that was?
Yeah. So I've shared this story a few times, it's interesting in this context to look at it, where I remember I had just gotten married. You're broke then, you're like after a wedding, we were away on our honeymoon, and then I came home and the job that I was in, which was currently our only secure income, was mine at that stage. Uh, she, the owner had a mental breakdown, you say. She had a personal experience that then made her just close down the whole company. So I was away for 10 days, come home, there's no more company, there's no more job. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I am currently the one bringing in the income. We don't currently have money. What are we going to do? And I had the owner of the entire organization. She was a company within in a broader organization. Call me up and he was like, "Are you back?" I said, "Yes." And he was like, "I want you to come in for an interview." And I went into that interview and he offered me a particular job, which is, he goes, "I basically want you to do for me what you were doing for her." And I was getting the best results in the country, like of all the companies. And so he's like, "I want you to do that for me at the head office." And in that moment, I said no. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need a job. I need the income. This is perfect. This has landed in my lap. And he was like, Wait, what?" Like a little bit taken back, as I was also taken back on my insides. And I thought, anybody could do that job. And this was in sales and he wanted me to do recruitment. I said, "I can train anybody to do recruitment. It's not me that is the reason I'm getting the results. It's the new strategy that I'd come up with that nobody else was implementing." I'm like, "I can train somebody to do that. I think the problem is you don't know how to retain." So it's constant recruitment in sales, just it's a constant flow. And he was like, "Okay, I'm listening." I was like, "I think that you have really great salespeople. You then put them in leadership roles. They're great salespeople, they're not great leaders. And so in those leadership roles, their sales start to dip and they start to lose the people that they're training anyway. And they keep getting burnt out and disillusioned that then they quit and you lose your superstar salespeople." I was like, "Let me train your trainers. Let me help your leaders learn how to lead. Let me help with their mindset and their emotional regulation. I feel like I could fill the gap of retention and let someone else do recruitment." And I thought in that moment, oh my goodness, I'm going to walk away with no job here. Like, and then I'm going to be at square one and we're going to end up homeless. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you a salary. You just make the role. If you can help me do that, after 3 months, we'll come back. We'll have a look at what, if it's been beneficial or not." He goes, "But I want you and I want your energy in this company. So I'll give you the salary and you create whatever you think is going to help me retain." And that's what we did. And I became a mindset performance coach. That is where my career started. And he sent me to Tony Robbins. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole industry that I didn't realize. And I knew when I was 23, so maybe 4 years prior, that I had some vision, if you will, when I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I was at uni and I just didn't feel in the right place. And I knew that I'd be a teacher, but it was a teacher of adults. And I had absolutely no idea how that looked. I did not know that was a career. I, I didn't even know the word self help or personal development. I just had that feeling that, and I spent the next 4 years trying to figure that out, getting essentially what I felt nowhere until this moment where I just felt to say no in the scariest decision. That turned into mindset performance coaching for the last 10 years,
Yeah, wow. And if you look at that decision, if you hadn't made that decision, where do you think you'd be now?
doing recruitment. I would just be still doing recruitment or still kind of floundering away in lots of different jobs, trying to find what would suit my unique set of gifts. And maybe I would somehow have ended up still in this position, but I think it probably would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah, yeah. And it wasn't just having that decision, it was also in that interview actually having the conviction to say, "No, but this
Mhm.
is what I think you need."
Mhm. Exactly. And then being able to back that. And but at that time I was just, what am I saying? What am I saying? What is coming out of my mouth? And and I think I also had even asked him, I wanted to do part-time rather than full-time, and he gave me a full-time salary to do part-time, and that was to help my husband build his business. And I thought, this is just, there's no way this is getting accepted. I'm going to give it a go and give it a try, but I really did think he was going to say no. And my brain thought he was going to say no, but obviously my soul thought there was another option. And that other option, I could not have planned something better.
Yeah, wow. And we're talking about professional settings there, careers, work, and obviously, you know, the wider view of life. But, you know, a lot of people listening would have heard, you know, kind of EQ over IQ. Can you explain for those listening what is emotional intelligence and how it differs?
Well, I think like when it comes to IQ and EQ, I highly rate both of them. You know, I wouldn't necessarily, maybe I would say one's better than the other. Maybe that is what I'm saying, but it's, IQ is intelligence, which is incredible. We all want intelligence. EQ I view as wisdom, right? So it's a higher level of intelligence. IQ, I believe, is a function of the brain, and the brain is highly limited. Like, it's incredible, but it is highly limited. It's programmed, it's traumatized, it's got all of these set habits and neurological pathways that kind of work against you that you've inherited or, you've picked up along the way. So it's very restricted and very limited. Very powerful though. EQ, I believe, is the wisdom that we get from it's like when you're with somebody and it doesn't matter what the words are that they're saying. It transcends language and you just feel or get a sense for that person, completely irrelevant what they're actually saying. Your body's kind of going, I feel really light around this person. I feel really drawn in, or I feel a bit tense and I'm contracting a little bit. Even though they might be saying the things that you agree with. They're not saying anything negative, but you're having a response it's an intelligence beyond what the mind can, I guess, piece together. And that is how I personally view EQ, where there's an emotional intelligence where you can hear what's not being said. You can sense what's not necessarily trying to be shown or displayed, but you're still picking up on that. Same thing in an argument. High emotional intelligence when you're in conflict would look like, they're saying these words to me, but I actually feel that they're saying this. I feel that they're expressing this. That's emotional intelligence rather than just, well, no, you said X, Y, and Z. And I say to people, what we often do is judge ourselves based on our intentions. We judge others based on their actions. And that's when it looks like, you said this. Yeah, but I meant this. And if we could judge others on their intentions and give them the benefit of the doubt and think, They might have said this to me, but what do they actually mean? What's not being said, what's not being shown? That to me is emotional intelligence.
So it's, so when you're looking at life that we go through each and every day, it's more, it's kind of less thinking and more feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a head person. So I'm a real head-centered thinking person, which is why I've had to and continue to. I'm certainly no, guru at this now, but I have had to actively try to fine-tune the part of me that is not naturally as loud. Right. So it's been an active effort to go, this is what I'm thinking. Okay, pause. What do you feel? Okay, pause with your pros and cons list mentally. What are you feeling? Are you feeling expanded? Are you feeling contracted? Are you feeling tension or are you feeling a release in the body? Like that has been a very difficult, active fine tuning process.
Yeah. Wow. And if you look at the world and clients and audiences that you're speaking to right now, where do you think, or why do you think emotional intelligence is so, I suppose, important right now?
Well, I believe with it, we have so, and you would have heard me talk about this on stage, right? Where we have a lopsided view, I believe, through probably through well intentions or good intentions, where we kind of focus all our energy on mindset, right? As the personal development world, where kind of like, right, everybody's just walking through life a bit unconscious and they're just acting off their programs and their habits. So let's look at the mindset. Let's look at those programs and those habits and let's evaluate them and scrutinize them and try to change them. So we had all of this rhetoric of, mind over matter, which is mind over the body or mind over everything else. We had where there's a will, there's a way. Um, if you think it, so it can be, change your thoughts and everything will be better. Like we've had this huge hyper focus on mindset, which has been way better off than where we were at, which was unconscious to more conscious. But it has also then created an imbalance of, and we completely ignore our emotional world. So we're building mental strength, we're not building emotional strength. And where I view that has caused a massive issue is because we go, all right, leave your emotions at home. You're at work, leave your emotions at the door. And we've tried to almost separate ourselves from feeling. And you're a man, you will know this rhetoric better than even women, right? Where it's you are told, don't be a princess, don't be a pussy, don't be a girl. Whenever there's an expression of emotion, it's like if you want to be a strong man, then don't be emotional. And for a woman, now the rhetoric has been if you want to be as successful as a man, don't be emotional. And so we're both sort of starting to develop this whole concept of emotions make you weak because you're not as efficient. You're not being functional. You're not just driving productivity. It's looked as something as that slows you down, as opposed to it's not your emotions that make you weak. It's the inability to regulate your emotions that makes you weak. That I believe changes the game for anybody listening, where it's understanding your emotions have never made you weak. Your inability to regulate them makes you weak or causes a weakness. And you cannot learn to regulate something that you're taught not to feel, that you're taught to avoid, that you're taught to escape from in work, in gym, in drugs, in whatever it might be, whatever the escapism is, you're learning to not feel your emotions. Well, then you're learning not to regulate. And that is when your emotions control you. And I look at it as we've put all this effort into building up one muscle, we've neglected the other muscle. There's atrophy in that area. And now we're all kind of a bit lopsided and out of balance. Good, might have strong mindsets, don't have very good, strong emotional regulation capabilities. And what that looks like, Steve, in the practical sense, is if you're in the workplace, you've got good thoughts, but then something really negative happens and throws out your good thoughts, your emotions take over, and now you're a bit of a loose cannon. You're really inconsistent. You're yelling at people or you're snapping at people or whatever it might be because your emotions is controlling the show.
Mm. So for people that are, listening, that obviously we all experience this, where our emotions overtake us. What are some tips or strategies to hijack that?
So we kind of try and apply the same formula as we do mindset on our emotions. Same formula doesn't work. So that formula looks like you've got a negative thought, change the negative thought. Like, look at what that negative thought is. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. Now change it. Just think a different perspective, think a different thought, or try and stamp it out with a positive affirmation or whatever. All of these techniques to be like, okay, don't look at the thought. Don't think negative thoughts. Don't think negative thoughts. Change the negative thoughts. So when we're feeling a negative emotion, we try to apply the same formula, the same strategy. Just don't feel that. Feel something positive. That looks like, "Oh, I don't wanna eat my dinner. There's starving kids in Africa." Like, or, "My foot hurts." At least you have a foot. Some people don't even have a foot, right? We try to invalidate what we're feeling by saying it could be worse. So think about how much worse it could be and then just shut down what you're feeling with that. Comparison. Invalidate through comparison and everything should be fine. It never is fine, as you and I know, Steve. You still
Yep.
feel it. You now just feel bad for feeling it, right? You feel guilty for feeling it. And so when
Or
it
you
comes,
feel, or a lot of the time, when you're not happy and someone says, just be positive, right? Like that irks you even more.
100%, or you're anxious and they're like, just calm down. Works
That
for
always works.
it just like makes you less calm because now you're feeling something. Now you've added judgment to what you're feeling. So you've just doubled down on it. You've not processed what you're feeling. You're now just feeling extra bad. You feel bad, and now you feel bad for feeling bad. You've amplified it. And so with emotions or energy or sensation in your body, that's really what it is. When you feel anxious, you're feeling a sensation in your body. Either a shortness of breath, a tightness of chest, knots in your stomach. It's a physical sensation. We put meaning, our mind then puts meaning to you're feeling anxious because of this or you're feeling anxious because of that. But technically, it's just a sensation that you're experiencing, right? So I look at it like this. Let's say that going on you're going on stage to public speak and you're feeling all of those knots in your stomach. You might go, "Oh, I feel so sick I could vomit. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. That's this feeling. I feel nauseous." Now, let's say you're about to do something excited, like maybe go on a date. You're feeling the exact same thing, yet you go, "Oh, I've got butterflies. I've got butterflies in my stomach. I'm so excited, it's butterflies." It's the exact same sensation, but your mind has gone, "This one you're feeling nervous, it's wrong. This one you're feeling excited, it's right." Really, it's just a sensation. So the way to process an emotion or a sensation or a feeling is to let it be. It's not actually to try and change it or to try and get out of it. That's why we all have, um, you know, an issue with knowing how to process emotions because we're applying the wrong formula. The way that I view it is look at a child. There are perfect examples of how to process emotions. We always think it's the opposite, but a child will go, it feels something and it will immediately express that feeling. It doesn't sit there and go, "What am I feeling, mother?" or, "Oh," it doesn't start intellectualizing the feeling. The child will immediately express it. They're running around, screaming, whatever it might be. It physically moves that energy. And then in a very short amount of time, they're back to baseline. They're back to their normal baseline. And we as adults look at that as chaos, right? Like they've gone from, "I hate you," punching and screaming to like sitting there and calmly like playing or drawing. And you're like, this is mayhem. And because we don't actually understand, that is how you process the emotion. You have the energy and then you physically let it out. You let it be there, you accept that it's there and you let it release. We then go, "Oh, it's there, it's wrong, it's bad. Shh, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Don't do that. We're in public. Other people are going to see. Be quiet. It's not good to be like this." And we teach children, which is ourselves, we teach ourselves how to suppress rather than express. So to answer your question, to change an emotion, it's not about changing it at all. It's about physically expressing it in whatever way you intuitively feel to let it out. Once you let it out, then your body comes back to regulation, back to a baseline of like, we wanted to run away and we went for a walk. We went for a jog. We actually ran. Now we're safe. Now we're back to a calm baseline. Then you can intellectualize what happened. Then you can think about it or you can pull it apart. But we don't want to change the emotion. We want to feel it and express it. We want to move it. And I've heard it put, emotion is energy in motion. Energy in motion. And if you let it be in motion, you let it move, it will pass very quickly. If you try to change it, try to not feel it, it's a bad feeling, it's a bad feeling. How do I not feel it? It will not move and it will stay in your body.
So you mentioned kids there. Obviously, I talk to a lot of parents and obviously a lot of men's groups I go to, a lot of retreats I run. We talk about how as children we were molded and now we're molding our kids. Uh, Obviously, if we're emotionally dysregulated, then we obviously have a huge impact to our kids. What what do you think parents can do differently, or what are some shifts that you're seeing that parents are doing that are having a positive impact on their kids?
Great question, because I think this is sort of the crux of where we can make a change here. We've already had like one evolution of, you'd have a generation of parents that were completely unconscious, right? They just did what they were taught to do. They parent the way they were taught to parent. And, then you have now generations of kids that feel traumatized and blame their parents for that traumatization. And, rightfully so in many cases. And so now you've got a generation of parents that are aware of that and trying not to traumatize their kids and, trying to be really conscious and change their patterns and their thought, which is brilliant. And I think there's another evolution to come, which is where we learn how to emotionally regulate. And again, you can't regulate what you can't feel. So if you're in any way escaping the emotion, whether that be, I'm a bit stressed, I'm going to have a glass of wine. Oh, I've had a really big day. I need to just relax. I'm going to have a couple of beers. If you're in any way trying to mask the emotion, then you're not learning to regulate it. And if you don't know how to regulate it, you cannot teach your children how to regulate it. You'll just teach them how to do more suppression. They will find then their own ways and their own habits, either through watching you or they'll pick something else up of, oh, I'm really feeling this emotion. I have not observed through my parents how to process that. I've just observed how to, oh, you're feeling upset. Let's go get an ice cream. Now we're emotional eaters. Right? Like, "Oh, don't feel bad. Other people have it worse than you." Okay, now I've learned how to just compare when I feel bad. So we learn all these different techniques to suppress it. Whereas the absolute greatest thing to do as a parent, I believe, is learn how to feel those feelings, learn how to process them, and then show that and demonstrate that to your children. So if it's you're really angry, it's okay to let them see you're angry if you let them see what you do. It could be like, all right, dad's just feeling a lot of tense energy in his body. I'm going to go outside and punch the punching bag. And I'm just really going to release that. And your child observes, oh, it's not bad to be angry. It's just a real like fiery tension in the body. Oh, dad goes out and punches it out, or mum goes out and punches it out, or mum throws some pillows around, or whatever it might be. Oh, that's what they do to release it. Oh, and then they feel so much calmer afterwards. That's what we need to do. right? And so you start learning them healthy ways to express rather than they observe that you don't feel them and then they grow up feeling it's not okay to feel them. And if you've got a very emotional child, that's that is crippling them because they feel so intensely and they have no outlet of where to put it. It will come out in some form, but that is when it's going to come out in destructive habits through, violence or addictions, or it'll leak out in some form because it has to come out. You've just not taught them how to do it healthily.
Yeah, wow. That's because I talk very much around the mental health side of things is coping mechanisms, right? We've all got coping mechanisms, whether it's your coffee in the morning or whether it's exercise, whether it's drinking or drugs or whatever it is. Some of them, and as you said, eating as well. Um, so it's about, yeah, when I'm sitting here thinking, from an emotional perspective and from a modeling perspective as parents is, you know, when your kids are, kind of maybe, showing some anger or some frustration or whatever is, rather than going, oh, look here, have an ice cream and bringing joy and trying to shift them, actually going, let's go to the park or let's this or let's that and get them out into a positive coping mechanism rather than something that's just going to either put a band-aid on or mold them into needing that long term into their life.
Exactly. And I love that what you said there. It's trying to shift the emotion with joy. Are you feeling anger? Oh, let's try and change that with happiness. And that's what I mean, where we don't want to change the emotion. We just want to express it. It it'll change on its own, or it will you'll shift into another emotion on its own. You don't want to try to change it because then we subtly suggest it's wrong. Right? So, "Oh, you don't wanna feel that. Let's go, eat some treats to not feel that." Now the messaging is, there's a certain set of emotions that are good, and there's a certain set of emotions that are bad, and that's a very damaging learning that we've all developed rather than all emotions are just energy. They're just energy in motion, and anger is actually super powerful. Anger drives a lot of action. Anger's not bad. Anger is what usually gives you this fire to move and to do something different or to get momentum. And it's just learning that you could take that energy, that fiery energy, and direct it however you want, rather than I shouldn't be feeling this way. This is a bad emotion. This is one of those emotions I got taught. No, not good, not good. We don't feel this. And anything that we actually struggle to feel as an adult, whether that be sadness or loneliness or even joy. Some people really struggle to feel joy. Anything that we struggle to feel is because you weren't allowed to feel it as a child. Anything. If you look at an emotion that you really struggle feeling, it's because as a child, in one form or another, you were taught or shown or told or observed that's not an emotion that we want to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've learned that through my journey of real self reflection since 2018, looking into why was I an emotional eater? And I went back to my childhood, my parents separated, and my dad is a very generous person, but it was always about buying love with lollies or treats or whatever it is, right? So I grew up being an emotional eater. Every time I felt, a certain way, it was like, I'm going to eat. But then it was interesting. I had a shift in a retreat where I actually said, why is emotional eating, why when you emotionally eat crap, right? And there's obviously a reason for that. But I actually then shifted to when I feel like I need to emotionally eat now, I actually choose better foods,
Mhm.
right? So, like, I'll have a bowl of fruit salad, right, rather than a bag of peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
And it was this shift that I went, hang on, I'm still emotionally eating to a certain point, but I've actually changed the element of it. And over time, then you feel better after eating a bowl of, fruit salad rather than, a bag of chocolate.
And I think that's such a brilliant strategy because in within it, you don't have to immediately erase the habit of emotional eating, but you are building self-trust. because you're picking something different to eat when it's difficult, like obviously the bag of M&Ms sometimes feels a lot more appealing. Because that's a difficult decision, you've changed one part of that pattern. That's a pattern disrupt. You've changed one part of that pattern, which has given you a sense of control, has given you a sense of like, yeah, I can actually make a harder choice here. And that builds self trust. And as you continue to build that muscle of self trust, and I can do hard things and I can, um, not always give into an impulse or an urge, that will build and build and build until a time comes where you feel like emotionally eating and you're like, I'm not going to this time. And you'll be like, oh my
Mm.
goodness, I didn't do it this time. And that builds
Yep.
more self trust. So I think that's a
And
brilliant strategy.
and we see it at a lot of the, like, I don't know if you've had friends, but I know friends that have struggled with addiction,
Mm.
and they go from being addicted to alcohol and drinking a lot to running marathons and ultra marathons, right? They just shift their addiction and their coping mechanism, and it it's got a far different impact to their life than the negative coping mechanism that they first put in place. And then over time, 5, 10 years down the track, they look and go, "Wow, I'm looking good, I'm feeling good." All these positive changes that have happened in my life just because they shifted the addiction.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And being able to shift something is a win. And when we're trying to change habits, we need those wins, those little hits of dopamine to keep going. And so I always look at a win's a win. Even if it is kind of like, yeah, right, you've shifted your addiction over here, that is at least more positive. That is at least a win and pattern disruptor that eventually keep evolving until it looks like, do you know what? I can sit still and not feel the need to not feel anxiety. Because that's the thing. When we feel something, we want to do something to fix it. So we want to eat, that's doing something. We want to run, that's doing something. We want to work, that's doing something. And, high performers have this issue so much more because anytime that they're still, they feel anxious. And so doing makes them feel not relaxed, it makes them feel relief from the pressure. Anxiety is a massive pressure. They're like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. Now I'm doing something, whatever that might be. There's a relief. There's a release of that pressure. It's not relaxation though, because you're still in go, 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 go mode, but at least you're not feeling that pressure. And so that's where so often even any high performer is also probably has a very addictive personality, to be honest. And so we just have addictions that we think are a lot healthier than drugs or gambling or whatever it might be. It's still kind of the same method, which is I don't want to feel something. So I've got to
Yep.
do something to not feel it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Jess, I want to ask, a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of my friends, even myself, going through the whole relationship issues, dating, all those kind of things, right? And when we talk about emotional intelligence, it's an interesting thing when it comes to that, I suppose, that topic or theme. What do you think? For me, I look at it and I say very much, I think the earth is a little bit off its axis a little bit because the dynamics, and you mentioned it earlier, between men and women are
Mhm.
kind of shifting. Um, what are you seeing from a relationship perspective when it comes to emotional intelligence?
Yeah, interesting. So I could talk about this topic for ages. We'll just open up Pandora's box.
Sorry, this is probably a podcast episode in itself. We'll have to get you back on, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think like it with every evolution kind of comes an extremity, right? And so we swing to one extreme, I believe, before we kind of come to the equilibrium. And so in relationships where once upon a time, it used to be that women typically would look for the men for providing protection, like the security, the resources, whatever resources we needed to survive, typically the woman would look to the man to provide those resources, right? And so now that's changed a lot where women are like, no, I want to be in charge of creating my resources and I'm very capable of creating my finances, getting a home, all of that. That now they're looking at men being like, what else do you bring? So, as once upon a time, pretty well every little boy is taught that his purpose is to create resources, right? And to protect and provide for your partner and your children. And so that's sort of something, if you're born and you learn that, you're like, yep, that's my role as a man. And you're there incredibly excelling at it or doing whatever you can to, um, elevate that role. And now you have women that are like, yeah, but what else? Like, I can make money too. So, you know, I want emotional and I want deep conversations. I want you to meet me on an intellectual level. I want to stay up all hours of the night having really deep emotional convos. I want you to be like passionate and they're wanting a really rich emotional world now because the need of the resources is not as great. And I feel for men that are like, what? I've been working my whole life to try and give you what you need. And now you're telling me you need all of these other things. And the irony of that is, I've been pursuing the collection of resources at the expense of my emotional world because I was taught the more successful you are, the less emotional you need to be. So, in order to give you all of this success and all of these resources and these finances, I've done that by trying to be less and less emotional. And now you're telling me I want emotions too. I want everything from you. I essentially want you to be the perfect woman. Right? That could be very emotional as well and multitask and, um, you know, anticipate needs that not have single focus, but look at everything else that's going on around you. And I think men have really come at a loss in being like, oh, I can't even get a win. Even if I'm providing well, that doesn't give me a win anymore. And on the flip side, women, I think, are more and more hardened to, well, I don't need anything. I could get it all myself. And the truth has always been, yes, we might not need, but we do want. That is the perfect balance of unity. And so I'm seeing more and more unhappy women, more and more unhappy men, not the opposite. It's not more, enriched relationships. It's more division and more separation and more kind of judgment of like, what do you bring to the table? Well, what do you bring to the table?
Yep. I think you've just perfectly summed up the dynamics of men and women at the moment and how many listeners and even myself have been feeling as well.
Mm.
I'd love to ask you because it's a bit of a controversial question, but it comes up in men's retreats and men that I talk to um, when we're starting to talk about the dynamics and who we want to be as a man, who we want our partner to be, what we think they want, what we know they want. Do women actually want men to be more emotional?
um, yeah. So there's a nuance here, right? Because women want men to be more emotional, which is essentially to a man, they want me to be more in my And then women also are like, "Ew, I get the ick when you're in your feminine because you're a man, you always should be in your masculine." And it's just these mixed messages where it's like, okay, it's almost like for a man, this is the way I picture it, that your partner's saying, "Do I look fat in this?" And your mind is like, under no circumstances do you tell her yes. It does not matter if that's the really bad shape for her. Like, even if she says, no, babe, I really want you to tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. A man goes, don't ever, this is a trap. This is a trap. You don't ever say yes. Right. So, yes, you may be asking for something, but deep down, I know you don't actually want that. And so there's there's that going on right now where men are hearing, okay, be emotional, but don't be feminine, but be masculine, but be emotional. What? Like, what are you actually asking for? And so I think the balance is And I think this is where the distortion has come from. It's something I'm seeing a lot and talking about a lot in my spaces where it's, women and men are both feminine and masculine. It's the feminine and the masculine is electrons and protons. They're the positive and the negative. It's again, it's just an energy. Masculine and feminine is not gender based, right? It's just the two energies of the universe. It's like night and day, sky and earth. It's the two polar energies operating. And within each of us, we have both of them. And so when we as a woman look to a man and be like, you need to be all masculine. You're the man in this relationship. I want to be in my feminine. You need to be in the masculine. If that's what you're asking, then you're not going to get the feminine. You're not going to get the emotions and the sensitivity. So you actually have to allow it, create a space where that man also needs to be able to be in his feminine, which means you as a woman also need to know how to be in your masculine. It's a dance, right? Where we're meant to be weaving. Sometimes, Steve, I'm highly in my masculine and I love it. And I love what I get done in my masculine. And sometimes I'm highly in my feminine and I love it. I love what I magnetize and what I attract and what I allow and draw in. And rather than being like, I should be all one or I should be all the other, it's in any given moment at any point in the day, you're weaving in and out of it. And so I think there has to be a space for men to realize you you don't have to be in all masculine. And it has to be women that are starting to realize I value your feminine as well. And so if you want emotions from the man, you need to be able to create the space where the emotions don't make him look weak. And how that has looked practically. Let me speak to this for a second. When my partner used to express a lot of emotion to me, like stress about finances and work, and I would freak out. Guess how likely he is to express those emotions to me again the next time? Right? Not at all. Now he's like, okay, not only do I have to deal with my emotions around the stress of money, I now have to deal with her emotions around not trusting me and around freaking out and fearing. And so I started to realize I'm not entitled to his emotions. I'm not entitled because I'm his partner for them sharing that for me. He's only going to share them if he feels safe to. And therefore, it is my job to create a safe space. So that is where I had to learn how to regulate my fears so that when he could express his stress to me, I could be regulated and calm and listen and be like, what validate it and be like, what do you want to do about that? What can we do? How can you have like it offers support rather than, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And now he just feels my stress and anxiety. And so I don't believe we're entitled to somebody letting us into their emotional world. I do believe we have to earn that through our degree of safety that we provide. And that safety is through our ability to regulate what's going on for us. Otherwise, they're like, I'm just not going to share that. I'm not going to share that.
Yeah. And that's what happens from a relationship perspective, I know, is that, a male will approach a topic with his partner will become defensive and shut him down. He doesn't talk anymore, right? And then we've got these men that are just sitting there, no voice, quiet. I see it on men's retreats and I see ones that I attend and host where men come in, they're very quiet, they really don't feel like they have a voice. By the end of the weekend, you can't shut them up, right? Because you've created this safe space where they can actually share and open up and actually be themselves. But it's interesting, and I don't think women intentionally want men to be shut down and and kind of withdrawn. I don't agree. I don't believe that. I think it's a product of the dynamics of relationships that
Yes.
that have happened.
And so maybe to answer that
Um,
question in the better way, it's women, yes, they do want their men to be emotional, but they want their men to be regulated. So that's the difference. It's like, show me your emotion, but No, show me how to that you can regulate them, because we're still wanting that safety and security. And so a man that's very emotional but a very explosive and just cannot control himself, or very collapsed and, can't do anything. That's the part that women are like, "Oh, that doesn't give me safety or security." And so they want that emotion, but they want the strength of your regulation of those emotions. And I think that's something that men can start to go, okay, emotion isn't weakness. And they're not wanting that weakness. They're wanting to see the strength of my regulation, right? They're wanting to see the strength of I can hold her when she's being emotional and chaotic, because we can be absolute brats, right? And when we're flying off the handles, and then as a man, he gets very defensive and he can't handle that, he can't hold that, then it turns into like a big storm. That's what women are seeking. They're like, can you hold me in that intense emotion? And a man can't do that if he can't hold his own intense emotions.
Yeah. So for men listening to this, then how do they shift that?
Look at it as, reps, like if in the gym, this is always the example that I use, because it makes so much sense for us in this context, that when you first go to the gym, you're gonna feel awkward, you're gonna feel wanky, you're gonna feel like, embarrassed, you're going to feel shame, you're also gonna feel very, weak if you haven't done any weights before, you're going to feel pain afterwards. But because in the gym we know the pain is a necessity to the growth, we then start to be like, yeah, I love feel the burn. I love the burn. Like we get really we start to like the pain, that particular type of pain, because we know that it's tearing the muscles, and then when the muscle repairs, it's going to be torn bigger, and we understand that process. And so that's why I use this specifically for men. In You've got to look at increasing your emotional capacity as reps. When you first start to do it, it's going to feel horrid. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna feel embarrassed, you're gonna feel clunky, wanky, shame job, all of those things. You're gonna feel weak. And the only way to strengthen that is to keep doing the reps. So smaller. You don't just walk in and be like, I want to lift 200 kgs. You've got to go in and be like, I've got to start with, 30. Or I've got to start wherever my capacity is, that's where I've got to start. And I've got to keep doing those reps until now I'm up to 40, to now I'm up to 60. And I've worked with many men on this. And I'm like, you just have to trust that building emotional resilience is the same as building physical resilience and physical strength. And some of my clients now, within a year, are worlds apart from where they used to be. And they're like, how did that happen? Like through those small reps that you did, you build that self trust. And that's the only way to do it. You can't stand outside of a gym and be like, I want to be buff and, ripped and toned and muscly, or slim, toned, whatever it might be, and not walk into that gym. You're just standing out the front with the PT being like, how do I develop these muscles? You got to get in the gym, mate. Well, no, but I don't want to, because that's going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to feel like an idiot. I'm going to feel like I'm not knowing what I'm doing. Well, they don't have the muscles. Like, there's absolutely no way around that. So it's the same with emotions. You have to start feeling small things. And whenever the way that I do this is, if you feel something and then you've got the habit to escape it, whatever that habit is to escape it, whether it be the alcohol or TV or food or whatever it might be, just try and sit in it a bit longer. Try and wedge something in between the feeling and the habit to escape. Wedge some kind of activity into that. I heard a woman talking about this the other day. I think it's DBT therapy, but she said she had a client who she was an alcoholic. And so every time she had the urge to go out to the pub and to drink, she'd have to do her nails. She would sit down and do her nails first, and then she could go to the pub for a drink. And more often than not, by the time that she had finished that wedging exercise, which was doing her nails, she was like, the urge isn't as intense. And she had more ability to say no to going to the pub. So we need like some little wedging exercise that we can put between the when you feel the emotion and the urge to hide that emotion or escape that emotion or cover it. So you can just sit in it a little bit longer. and just be like, no, don't turn on the TV. Just sit here and feel uncomfortable for a bit longer. That you then still can do the habit if you want afterwards, but at least extend the time of sitting in that emotion. That's the rep. That's if I can get better at this over and over and over again, I don't need to escape it anymore because I'm like, hello, darkness, my old friend. Come to sit with me
Yep.
again. Right? You don't have to escape it because your resilience is so much greater.
Yep. So it's kind of, if you're talking about the gym analogy, if a guy was to go in and walk into the gym today and someone said, "Oh, you fat bastard,"
Mhm.
or, give him, like something that kind of knocks him back, his walls and barriers are going to go up. When you're talking about this work in a relationship, can you share what do women listening to this conversation need to, how do they need to show up, or what do they need to consciously put in place to actually support men that are going to go through this process?
Great question because I think we don't because we're skilled more so emotionally. That's sort of our natural instinct. Like we are more as women or as the feminine, that's our area of power. It's also why women can be very manipulative, controlling in that area. Because if we're feeling a bit powerless, we will use that to kind of bamboozle our partner almost, right? Like that's our power. Just like a man might flex or yell or, we get scare you physically. Some men could scare you physically. And we're like, that's so wrong. That's so bad. I think it's just as wrong and bad for a woman to flex her strength to kind of overpower the man, but that's a topic for another day. So we have to be really responsible as women that their emotional world is our powerhouse. That comes naturally to us. So there's two parts to this. One is being responsible to not essentially try and overpower him because that would be just as bad as if he was overpowering you physically because he's stronger in that area. Right? So be responsible to your power, for one, and two, be compassionate that that is not their area of strength. And so the way that I try and counterbalance it, because I'm still a woman, I still have the same frustrations as every woman that will be listening, right? Where I'm like, oh, come on, can't you just like be better in this area, right? To calm that down with compassion that that is not his powerhouse what is. And I look at all of the areas that he is way more powerful and stronger than me, the areas that he really excels. And I try to like couple that frustration with, well, hang on, Jess. Imagine if he was trying to force you into, going outside and building the shed. I mean, like, why is it taking you so long, Jess? Why can't you just figure this out? Like, here's a drill, here's a nail, figure it out. And I'll be like, I don't know. Oh my goodness. Like that would be terrifying for me. And so I always give those analogies to myself where it's like, what's the area where he's really skilled that you're not? And if he was trying to push you and rush you and force you and be like, why are you so stupid? Like, why can't you like give me that energy of like, you're dumb, you're stupid. Like, why can't you do this? What's wrong with you? I'd be mortified. Yet we as women are doing that because, like I said, women expect their man to be the perfect woman, right? Where it's like they're great with emotions and they're great with that and that attunement and sensing. They are different. They have a different skill set. They're built different. Their biology is different. So we have to have compassion that that is going to take some time, and any difference is a win that you have to celebrate any slight pattern disrupt that they've been able to implement, even if they've still blown up, but it took them longer this time, that's a win. And acknowledge that win, like, oh, you actually kind of sat in that a little bit longer than normal. And, um, have a lot of positive reinforcement because negative reinforcement in this area is I'm going to punish you by giving you the silent treatment or not giving you sex or whatever it is that you want, I want to punish you because I learned as a kid the only way to change behavior is to punish. I don't like the way this child's behaving, put them in timeout, take something away from them, tell them off. Like we've actually all subconsciously learned that if you want to change someone's behavior, punish them, which is control, right? It also doesn't work. Like, oftentimes it actually is not effective or it creates other problems, even if it solved that one. And so we tend to punish our partners to try and get them to change. It doesn't actually work. It often causes shutdown and resistance.
Yeah. And I think, from some of the conversations and from some of the stuff I'm seeing out there as well, is that some of the old relationship dynamics and, the things like you bring up sex, right? Like, if you don't do what I want, I'm not going to give you sex, right? The interesting thing is now is that I think men have reached an exhaustion now where they're just like, okay. And they just, and then they go, they don't even fight for it.
Yeah.
They just give up, and we're living in a generation at the moment where a lot of men are just giving up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I just did a podcast on mine yesterday about this, the deflation that happens where it's like, I can't get a win. I'm hearing this and I'm trying to do it this way. And every, like, for example, the example that I used was a woman wants a man to plan the date. Like, I just wish you'd take the lead. I just wish you'd be in your masculine, take the lead and plan the date. And I'm not going to give you any hints or any prompts around what kind of date I want because I want to judge how well you know me, how well you listen to me. And I'm going to determine that the success of the date is how much you love me and how caring and considerate you are. So you put all of that pressure behind, can you plan the date? The man goes, "Yep, task orientated. No worries, I'll plan the date." And he doesn't plan it the way that you wanted it to be planned, and now you're upset. And now you're either having a big fight about it or you're sad about it or sulking about it. And he goes, "Oh my goodness." So the next time you say, "Can you plan something?" Two things are going to happen. He's going to say, "Can you tell me what you want? Because clearly I got it wrong last time." Then the woman's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I have to tell you. I might as well just plan it myself." So she's getting very upset at a request to give him some help here. And, or two, he's going to say, "Nah, I'm not, because you're always upset when I plan something. So you can do it." Because they just go, you know what, I want her to be happy. So she's clearly more happy when she plans it because she gets exactly what it is that she wants. So I'll just leave it up to her. And then women are more angry because they're like, he plans nothing without realizing, sure, but did we do something to shut him down when he was trying to get a win? Right? It's like, and if a man can't get a win, even for us as women, if you can't get a win, you want to stop playing the game. If you are every single time losing, the game gets a bit boring, to be honest, and the game gets a little, and then we go, men are just, they're useless. They're just throwing their hands up and giving up. And it's like, well, you're giving options where they can't win. No one wants to keep playing a game where they can't get a win.
Yep. Yep. 100%. That section that we've just covered on relationships and some of the absolute gems that you've shared there, I think people will be sitting there going, wow. Some people will probably have their jaw on the floor.
Mhm.
But a lot of people would have resonated.
Mm.
Jess, in today's conversation, obviously we've touched on a lot of things, but if someone could take one thing away from the conversation, what would you like them to take away?
Oh God, so many things we covered, Steve. It's,
Yeah.
I I would love people to have become more open to now looking at emotional regulation as the next step in their evolution. Like, if you want to evolve your business, like if you want to up level your business, if you want to up level your relationships, that can be romantic or platonic relationships. If you want to up level your life and your experiences, the next key is not more mindset. I mean, that's still important. But the
Mm.
next key to that is emotional regulation so that you can actually feel your feelings. So you don't feel numb. You're going through life feeling numb and empty, but achieving lots of things. So you can feel your feelings, but you also now have developed the strength and the superpower of knowing how to regulate those feelings so you don't feel. I look at it like this: emotions are a wave. You either feel like you're drowning in them, getting dumped by them, or surfing them. And so I want people to know the option is you learn how to surf those waves You'll never have a more free, powerful feeling. And I know for me, I have never felt more trusting of myself, more self assured, more self confident, therefore more able to take risks and to, you know, to follow my intuition as well into exciting opportunities. I've never felt more powerful than when I have added the emotional strength to my mental strength. When I've started to develop both of those muscles, that is the game changer. And I hope, if nothing else today, people have just become aware of, it might be something else for me to look at here if I want better relationships, if I want to be a better parent, if I want to be a better boss or employee or business owner. This is the next, the secret ingredient. If you're looking for the next edge,
Awesome.
this is your edge.
Love it. Now, Jess, for those that want to tune into you, kind of get some more insights and follow your content, where's the best place?
I'm most active. You can find me on LinkedIn as Jess Cameron. I'm most active probably on my Instagram, which is that's Jess Cameron. You could put that in your show notes, I'm sure. Or I have a podcast
Yep.
too, which is Come Undone with Jess Cameron. If you want to work with me too, my website's jesscameron.com. So pretty easy to
Awesome.
find me.
Brilliant. So grateful for your time and your insights today. And I'm sure listeners have taken a lot away. So look forward to connecting with you again soon. And I think there's probably a few more topics that we can kind of jump into as well in a future podcast.
I'd love to, Steve. Thanks so much for having me. It's a privilege.